Joining me now is the Conservative Party's candidate for Warminster East, Andrew Davis.
Good morning.
Good morning, Andrew. And now you're standing in two elections, aren't you? Just to be a little complicated.
Indeed.
So you are the Conservative candidate for the unitary election in the East.
Yes.
And you're one of four for the town.
That's correct.
Is that right? So why should the residents of Warminster East choose you?
Well, I've actually been the councillor on the unitary since the start of the unitary, and since the start of the unitary council. Before that, I was a county councillor, and I've also served on the town council for probably over 25 years as a member representing Warminster East. So I just want to have this opportunity to continue the work that I've been doing so far.
And what would you say, sort of, since the last election in 2013, you've achieved as councillor in the East?
Do you want on unitary or that? I mean, it's been an interesting time the last 4 years. In actual fact, I mean, we've had a lot of developments taking place or planned to take place on the west, which has taken a lot of people's away from the east. You know, a lot of people's views away from the east, and they've been thinking about what's been happening in the west. But certainly in the east, I mean, the thing that I've really fought for in the east for some time, indeed over the last 18 months, and has just been done, is the resurfacing of the road outside Bishopstrow House and the hotel. That was promised to be done in the last financial year, and unfortunately it wasn't on the list to be completed in that year. We have on the Unitary Council we have an area board, and the area board sees lists of roadworks that might be taking place. And once upon a time, at the start of the last financial year, it was on the list. 6 months later, it was off, and from that point on, I fought to try and get it reinstated. And indeed, it didn't get reinstated at the end in that financial year, but it's for the first project of the new financial year.
Okay. And you mentioned about the focus on the West with regards to the housing and the urban extension. Yeah. There is a view in town that there should be some houses built in the East.
Yeah.
What's your view on that?
My record on that is, as it stands at the moment, is that I was against there's the piece of land they call Spurt Mead.
Yes.
I followed that through all its process. At the unitary level, I'm a councillor on the planning committee, at the Western Area Planning Committee, and that indeed, with the support of Christopher Newbury, who represents the Bishopstrow, we got a refusal. That got through a refusal and has taken. A refusal was agreed, and it's now going through the process of going through an inspectorate with an outcome coming I think by the end of this month. However, I will say they've taken a long time to go through the inspectorate. The other point is there's the home farm development, which is, believe it or not, it's over 4 years ago that the developer actually wanted to consider. I recall going to meetings before the last unitary council elections, trying to say hearing views about the home farm development. It's progressed through its way. It's still, I have called it in, which means that should the planning application be ready, it will go before a committee. It won't just be given a rubber stamp by a planning officer at Trowbridge. It will have to be discussed at a committee. And as it stands at the moment, I think there's still negotiations between from the developer and its various partners as to which way to proceed. Because at the moment, although it should have appeared on a committee agenda many months ago, it hasn't. But that's for them to decide and see that. But I certainly know there's a lot of interest from the residents who live around the east area, the home farm area, and I would declare, not that I could actually predetermine, but I take on board what their views are.
Right, okay. You talk in your leaflet about the community asset transfers that have taken place. Is that not Wiltshire Council just passing off things to other people?
You could look at it like that. However, most of the things that have been transferred are things that people wanted to have transferred to the town council because, quite frankly, they weren't happy with how things were going in the state. For instance, if you take on the park, which I know you were speaking to Rob about in that, in the few months that the town council have now taken on control of the park, you can see the changes. That unfortunately, whilst it was under unitary control, budgets were being spent across the whole of Wiltshire, and some of it was not filtering through to Warminster, so things weren't necessarily happening correctly. So people wanted the park, they've got the park. People want the Athenaeum is being transferred, and that sort of thing. So we're actually giving back to the town, doing the community asset transfers of things in the town of importance to the town that people want. And indeed, you could also say the same about the public conveniences. There was a problem with the public conveniences. I mean, Wiltshire across the whole county were saying having a review on public conveniences and the budget spent on them, and indeed, every town would require, but incidentally, there's no statutory rule that says you have to provide public conveniences. It's purely at the will of the respective council. So Warminster in that respect took on public conveniences.
Right, so lots. Do you envisage anything more being transferred?
I don't think car parks will be transferred because in the way that things work, the car parks generate an income that supply things that help supply. For instance, people choosing to use a car and pay for car parking, which has now become quite accepted in the town because most places around charge for car parking. I mean, go back 4 years when we didn't charge for car parking, there was an uproar about the charging of car parking, but people now have come to accept that car parking is chargeable. But the money's raised from that often goes on to support other things in the transport thing, like buses and things around, to keep some of the subsidised buses working, and the mini-link buses and things like that are.
And the hopper bus?
No, the hopper bus is a completely different thing. No, you could. The hopper bus is a completely different thing. It was a partnership between the health authority, the council, and the provider. And what happened was that the other two providers dropped out of the thing, leaving Wiltshire Council to carry the can. And Wiltshire Council weren't prepared to, without the partners involved, and particularly the health authority. I mean, the hopper bus was set up to serve the Royal United Hospital in Bath, and when they dropped out of it, then they didn't have any lot of faith in it either. And you've got to say, from a taxpayer's point of view, why should Wiltshire Council carry the whole can for the expense of the hopper bus?
Your opponents some of your opponents, I don't want to put words in all of their mouths, certainly the independent councillor candidate Paul MacDonald points out about the scaffolding in the High Street in his leaflet and the lack of action there. It's been too long, hasn't it?
Paul doesn't know, does he? He's just right. The bottom line with the scaffolding is that for over 4 years there's been talk about what to do with that building. The building itself was sold last year, middle of last year, for a gift of a price. But this is the point to stress: in the selling pack for that building, there was between £500,000 and £700,000 of maintenance work needed to be done on that building just to reinstate it to what it is. The scaffolding is there keeping the building up. Without the scaffolding, the building will fall down. The council still have to continue granting licences to the scaffolding and for the scaffolding to remain on the pavement, which they do because they know the building will fall down. You could say, let's take the scaffolding down, or let's compulsorily purchase the building, which is what some people would think would be great. But then you would be lumbering a council with a bill, and this is not our estimate, this is in the sales pack of the building, of between £500,000 and £700,000 worth of work needed doing. And I wouldn't want to push any council on that now. I am aware that the people who currently own the building are in negotiations with planning officers in relation to putting a planning application in, and so their time starts from when they bought it, and let's hope certainly before the end of the next council the scaffolding will be removed, because that's what I was going to say was the one thing that I wanted to achieve. So I wanted to achieve it. I wanted to achieve the getting rid of the scaffolding at the last council, and it has been over 5 years. However, and there's been meetings and things and bits and pieces. However, the bottom line is that there's an awful lot of financial liability to it, and it has to the scaffolding has to remain. I mean, there has been incidences of things falling, the property falling down, bits and pieces falling down. I was linked in with getting that sorted out. As the local unitary councillor for the area, I'm well aware of the situation on that building, and this is the thing, Andrew. if people ask me, I can explain the whole saga to everybody. But if you just want to write and read, this is terrible, this is shocking, something should be done. Why don't you ask people that actually know what's actually there? And that's what I would want to put across. I'm aware of it, and that's what that's what I will continue to do.
Right, so very quickly, fearing that I have that you've already answered the question,
Yes.
What do you want to achieve if you're re-elected?
But a bit like the scaffolding. The scaffolding was my number one achievement I want to achieve. But the bottom line is, and in my experience as a town and unitary councillor, I'm aware of a number of things, but if people don't ask me what's the problem in that, I can't help them. Now, a number of people come to me asking, for advice or what should they do in that and that. And I'm pretty genuine. If there's a chance of helping anybody in their concerns with the council, I will tell them. But likewise, I am honest, Andrew. I would say if an idea or something isn't going to fly, or somebody's wish list that they would like to see in the town, they want to insist in that, I will be the first one to say, with the greatest respect, it's a great idea, but it's not necessarily going to fly, and that's what I would like to continue to do. I'm very dedicated to Warminster and very dedicated to the East. If one of the things I'd like to put across is that I'm self-employed and I have the time and the commitment to do the work on the council. If you look on my attendance records at any of the meetings, I have virtually a 98% attendance record for all the meetings that I attend. I don't just say I'm the local councillor. People don't realise that because a lot of these meetings are at County Hall and that, but I can, but you would have to understand that there's a lot of work goes on behind the scene rather than just standing at elections to be re-elected.
Okay, we've run out of time, Andrew.
Okay.
Thank you very much for coming in, and as I'm saying to everyone, good luck on the 4th of May.
Thank you very much.